you. Do you know it was only 10 years ago that science acknowledged that we have a neuroplastic brain? They always thought our brain was hardwired, set. But in the last 10 years, medicine has shown, no, we have a soft-wired brain. You know what that means? It's constantly changing. Our whole body has the incredible ability to adapt and adjust. And the brain has the ability to adapt and adjust. And when you look at what some people have adapted and adjusted to, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? It's the 100-year centenary of Anzacs, yeah? My grandfather was a light horseman. And incredible what those young men adapted and adjusted to in the war. So sometimes it can be a terrible thing and sometimes it can be a wonderful thing. So what I want to show you today, that even if your body has adapted and adjusted to bad habits, bad thoughts, bad lifestyles, you can be rewiring your brain right up until the day that you die. That's incredible, isn't it? Now, even though it's only 10 years that medicine has acknowledged we have a neuroplastic brain, God knew. Well, of course God knew. He made the brain, and he talks about it in the Proverbs. One proverb is Proverbs 13, verse 20, where it says, "He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools will be destroyed," because of the law of adaptation, or adapt and adjustment. And the other proverb is Proverbs 22:24, where it says, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go, lest thou learn his ways and get a snare for thy soul," because of the law of adaptation. Now, what I'd like to do this afternoon, I would like to show you how you can rewire your brain by going through, as my foundation, the laws that govern the brain. Now, I first discovered these in a little book called Mind, Character and Personality by Ellen White. And I was particularly drawn to a paragraph, and I'll recite that paragraph. It's found in Education, page 100. "The same laws that are upholding nature are working also in man. The same great laws that guide alike star and atom control human life. The laws that govern the action of the heart, regulating the current of flow of life to the body, are the laws of the mighty intelligence that has jurisdiction of the soul. From him all life proceeds. Only in harmony with him can be found its true sphere of action. To all objects of his creation, the conditions are the same. A life exercised in harmony with the Creator's will, a life sustained by receiving life from the Creator." Notice this last sentence: "To transgress his law, whether it be physical, mental or moral, is to place oneself out of harmony with the universe, to invite discord, anarchy and ruin." Majestic words. You can see why I memorised it. And by the way, I don't have a talent with memorising. It just takes me a long time. And I'll show you how you can memorise. It's about rewiring your brain. Notice the three laws. Physical, we've been looking at physical law. Moral, the 10 Commandments is called the Great Moral Code of Ethics in the dictionary, but what are the mental laws? So that's what I'd like to go through with you now, is the basic mental laws that govern the brain. The first mental law is the law of cause and effect. Newton's third law of motion: to every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. It is the law of cause and effect, and never should the effect be blamed as the cause. And unfortunately, it often is. But there's one very wonderful one. It's called the law of cause and effect. It's do unto others as you would have them do to you. Now, this is a nice saying, but it's more than a nice saying. It is divine law, and that law states that whatever you give out, you shall receive again. Now, that's great, and it's scary. When it's scary if what you're giving out is not good, because what does that law state? It will come back. Now, some people say, well, they really hurt me and they need to know what it feels like. Maybe so, but not by your hand. Because if it is by your hand, what does that law state? It will come back. Our job is to walk away. How can you walk away? Because the pain often goes too deep and too great. You can walk away through the second law, which is the law of choice. Now this morning I broke up the brain for you and I showed you where choice happens. Here is the brain from top down. Looks a little bit like a walnut, and I think God's got a sense of humour because the nut that is the highest in omega-3 looks like the brain, and omega-3 is an essential oil in brain function. And by the way, you don't have to have fish oil. You can get your omega-3 through ground flax, must be freshly ground, or chia seeds. Now the front part of the brain is the frontal lobe, and even though there are two lobes, medicine calls them the frontal lobe as if there is one, because both lobes have the same function. It's in the frontal lobe part of the brain where our reasoning powers reside, judgment takes place, and it's in this frontal lobe part of the brain where our intellect is. And I call the fourth function of the frontal lobe the most wonderful gift that God gave to mankind. It is the will, the governing power in the nature of man, the power of decision or of choice. So this is where choice happens in the front part of the brain. Now, that's the front third. The back part of the brain is where feelings are. And frontal lobe is fully developed at the age of 30. This morning we looked at all the things that can bring that down. Alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, caffeine, sugars. We looked at all the things that can bring them down, and this is where God communicates with man. In Isaiah 1:18, God says, "Come, let us reason together." This is where it happens. This is where our choices are made and our decisions determine our destiny. One lady said to me, "I'm really challenged with the way I was treated as a child." And I said, well, there is one way that you can choose to be freed from that, and that is the choice to forgive. And her response was, "They don't deserve to be forgiven." I said, absolutely right. But it's got nothing to do with it. You see, forgiveness is the only prescription in the entire universe with the power to break the chemical bonds of hostility, anger, and hate. Forgiveness cuts the chains that bind you to painful past, and many people are stuck in unforgiveness because of the reason they don't deserve to be forgiven. It's terrible what happened. When you don't forgive, you bind your abuser to you. Who would do that? And do you know they may never know that you've forgiven them? It's the best selfish decision that you will ever make. Here is your brain cell. I'm going to show you what happens when you forgive. And it's incredible what science shows us now about forgiveness. So I was fascinated to see the next up-and-coming seminar on forgiveness. That will be fascinating. You have 1 trillion of these in your brain. It's your brain cell. And it communicates with the next brain cell via little chemical messengers. And we looked at that a little bit this morning. We looked at what interfered with interrupted. But what I want to do now is I want to show you what happens when you have a habit. Now this lady, her mother had married 5 times, her father had married 4 times, and she was angry and she was bitter. She was 40. She said, "I am happily married to the best man on the planet. I have 3 children. My whole acre is a menagerie of animals and I help at the school." But she said, "I have one problem." She said, "There's a dark shadow when my husband and I are intimate." Now, what does that tell me immediately? This girl's been touched. And the Bible says, "Forgetting the things which are behind, I reach forth to the things which are before." I don't believe we should be digging up bad past. I said to her, "Have you forgiven your abusers?" She got very angry with me. She said, "They don't deserve to be forgiven." I said, "Maybe not." She said, "And if I forgive them, I'm saying it's all right." I said, how could that be? How could that ever be all right? Forgiveness will set you free. Whoa, she was a tough nut. And you can see why. She must have been touched badly by many. The next day, we talked again. She said, I'm still very angry with you. But I pushed it. And I pushed it because I knew it was the only way she could be free. Now, she had a long-standing, well-worn pathway. Got that? It's called habit. She had a long-standing, well-worn pathway of anger and bitterness towards her abusers. And here she was, in a happy home with a husband she loved, children, but it was overshadowing it. Can you see that? It was creeping in. It was creeping in. And the very thing she was holding on to in an attempt to punish or make it right was actually not making it right. I said, in your brain, you've got the wrong connection. She said, what do you mean? I said, delete. Forgiveness means it's all right. No. I said, delete. And with forgiveness, shut in there or lock in there, however you would say it, freedom. Got that? Freedom. Healing. I said, this is why your husband can't touch you, or there's trouble there, is because of what you're holding on to. And something else happens. When we entertain or cherish negativity, which she was, not realizing what it was doing to her, thorns were growing. These are physical thorns that actually grow between the dendrites. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, in her book, Who Switched Off My Brain, she goes into this in detail. Thorns, there's your psychosomatic diseases. Notice what I said, when you cherish or entertain. You see, when a negative thought comes in, it's like a breeze wafting through the branches of our trees. And we can hold on to it or we can stop it. When you hold on to it, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? What's growing? Little thorns. She was struggling. She had a well-worn pathway. I said to her, I believe you will be able to forgive. What did I do when I started that? What's still the strongest pathway? Now, she resisted many times. And when she left, I still hadn't seen a turnaround. On the way home, her girlfriend rang and said, she's done it. She's done it. You see, it is not a feeling decision, or I'd like to suggest we will never do it. It's a frontal lobe decision. Don't wait till you feel like it or you won't do it. And I'm about to present something that sounds very flippant, but it's actually a scientific fact. Fake it till you make it. Is that right? To fake? Are you lying? No. These are like a wild horse. They need the bridle on them. Whoa up. Do you ever say to yourself, settle down? When God says, behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man hear my voice and open the door, he says, I will come in and sup with him and he with me. What's the door? That's the door of understanding. It's the door of reason, judgment and intellect. Then you make the decision to open it. It's because of reason, judgment and intellect that your frontal lobes are challenged as I speak with people who've abused and hurt you. We can all testify to it. We can all testify to it. Every heart has its sorrow. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. One man said this helped. He got a boat in his mind. It was connected to the shore. And in it, he put it all. The abuse, the yelling, the physical, the sexual abuse, the maltreatment, the misunderstandings. Got them all. And then he got a knife You know the name of the knife? It's forgiveness. That's the name of the knife. And he cut the rope. And the rope went down the stream, out to the sea. And let's say the next day he wants to go and get a few of them back again. It's going to be difficult, isn't it? If he can ever find that boat again. And I found with this girl who was challenged, I tried everything. And I could see a little bit of a turn when I gave her this illustration. But I used to end the sessions because I thought, oh, I'll back off a little now. I'll just back off a little bit now. I've planted the seed. Plant the seed and let God work on it. And when she said, I will forgive, what did that do to the pathway? Made it a little bit stronger. Does she still feel like it? No. But remember, that's a wild horse. Don't go to them. Feelings are not bad. It's only when they're in charge, because they go up and down like the wind. God designed the human brain that the feelings be under the control of frontal lobe. And frontal lobe's not fully developed till the age of 30. That's why I say to parents, bind your children to your heart here. So that when they're teenagers, they will make you their counsellor and guide. Many teenagers don't, because the parents build up the brick wall. Never nag, because it never does any good. Say it once, say it well, and enforce it. Actions are everything. Words are nothing. How long will it take before the new pathway is stronger than the old? Science shows us 21 days. 21 days of going on the new pathway. I forgive. One lady said to me she couldn't even say the person's name at first. I forgive her. She didn't feel like it. She doesn't have to forgive it. She doesn't have to feel like it, because how could you feel like it? It's so painful. I forgive. By the 4th day she could say the name. Things were getting better. After 2 weeks, she'd lost all her antagonistic feelings. That's exciting, isn't it? 21 days of going down the new pathway. And 21 days of not going down the old pathway. This lady rewired her brain. We can all rewire our brain. And science shows we can be doing that till the day we die. Now, this lady is in a forgiveness habit pathway. So when she's challenged, she just goes down the strong pathway. There's only one time that pathway will disappear, and that's in the first 3 years of life. That's why the first 3 years of life is the best time to discipline children. Because you can totally change the pathways. Now that pathway will never go, but it need never be visited. Isn't that good news? Science shows us we can do that till the day we die. I love the story of the 90-year-old man who graduated from law school. The 92-year-old lady who learned to play the piano. If you say you can, you will. If you say you can't, you're right. You won't. Don't make a can't pathway. Make a I will pathway. Forgiveness is powerful. And I find it's often a missing link when someone is sick and they're doing everything right and they're not healing. Then we have a look. It's like Doug, 40, prostate cancer. I said, did you have a happy, healthy childhood? He said, no, my father yelled at me all my childhood. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. He did the week. He heard my lecture on forgiveness. The next day, I said to him, have you forgiven? No, you don't understand how bad it was. I understand that it must have been very difficult, but I said, this is not negotiable. I decided to push it a bit. I said, you must. I said, you heard the lecture. It's just a decision. It's just a decision you make. You don't have to feel like it. Just do it. very hard. I said, I know it's hard, but it'll only take a minute. You can do it. I could see I was pushing him a bit too much, so I backed off. 2 minutes later, he said, I've done it. I jumped up and congratulated him. He smiled. He smiled. And the first week he frowned, the second week he smiled. Dr. Carolyn Leaf goes one step further. She says, when you make the decision to forgive, the second smallest cell in the human body, which is the glial cell, and there are more glial cells in the brain than brain cells, and they're the brain's vacuum cleaners. And when we make a decision to forgive, let's say right now, we each forgive anyone who's ever hurt us, ever misunderstood us. When we make a decision to forgive, and remember, you don't have to feel like it, doesn't that hold so many people off? I forgive. That's it. Tonight, when we go to sleep, because of our decision to forgive, these little cells are activated. And they come along and vacuum clean up the storms. Science now shows us that forgiveness has a physiological effect to detox the brain. And that explains why Doug never mentioned it again. In the first week, he was talking about it every day. And if you keep talking about it, what happens to it? More thorns are growing. Love is a choice. Love is not dependent on feelings. The movies are wrong. Hopefully we all realise that. Movie stars go through quite a few partners, don't they? No, love is a choice, and the choice to love is made here. I'll give you a story. My husband, Michael, his first marriage fell apart. He said it's because he made the choice in the feelings. He had 2 little children, they needed a mother, and he decided to choose a wife scientifically. He's a businessman. If it works out on paper, it works. So he put down every woman who was at all eligible that he knew to be wife. And he had a pros and a cons list. Now, Michael and I had known each other for 10 years, and unbeknown to me, I was on the list. No one knew about the list. He said my name kept going to the top of the list. He was the business manager at Living Valley Springs, and I'd moved there about a year before. We'd known each other from homeschool camps. He said, but I had 2 negatives against my name. I was a couple of years older than him. At the time, he was 39, I was 43. And I had too many children, 6 children. Eh? Who's going to take on 6 children? So he said, what does age matter when you're early 40s? And he discovered the children were really good workers, so they went to the positive side. Now, his 2 children, who were, I think, 10 and 12 at the time, they knew, and one of his mates knew. And apparently it was going for about 8 months or something. So he got up one day and he said to his daughter, well, all the information's in. I'm going to go across and ask Mrs. Russ to marry me today. She said, Dad, you have to ask her out first. He said, no, there's not going to be nothing emotional about this decision. Anyway, she beat him down and he asked me out to tea. And I said yes, because I very much liked Mr. O'Neill. I just thought, can't get near this guy with a 10-foot pole. So we went out for dinner. We talked about the weather and the children. He dropped me off, shook my hand. 3 days later, he got up and said, the courtship's gone on long enough. Today's the day I will ask. And so Michael comes into my house about 3 in the afternoon. He said, I've got a few things I want to talk to you about. I said, yes. He said, I've been thinking about things and I think we should get married. I said, this is very analytical. He said, yes, I'm a very analytical person. I said, I think when 2 people marry, they should love each other. And when I said that, he went, He said, well, I'm very attracted to you and I love your character. And I thought, well, that's nice. I feel the same. So I said, yes, I will. And it seems like a very flippant answer to a life-changing question, but we were good friends, acquaintances, but good friends. I'd always very much liked him, but I thought, he keeps a distance around him. So I thought, how can I improve on that? So he said, great, meet me tonight at my house with all the kids. And he was gone. Now the children's ages were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 19, 21. Mine 10, he's 11, mine 12, he's 13. So we sat in a half circle that night and he said, well, children, we've got an announcement to make. And his daughter said, Dad, we already know. He said, He said, well, I'd like to know what you all think. And all children agreed. I thought that was a miracle. He showed great respect to my children by not coming near me. Anyway, 2 weeks, he said, no need to wait, let's get married. It's interesting, the next day he walked past the window and my heart began to beat and I thought, oh, that's right, I'm marrying him. You see, the third law states that your words affect your feelings. Now, I didn't say to my heart, okay, heart, love that man. The decision to marry him was really the decision to love. It just happens. And it's a very important law of the mind. You have to be careful what you say because it affects you and it affects everyone around you. And many are in the habit, got a strong pathway of saying whatever they feel, whenever they want. And Proverbs 29:11 says, the fool utters all his mind, but the wise man keeps it until afterwards. I've been married to Michael for 19 years now. He has never raised his voice to me. He has never got irritated or impatient with me. He has never got angry. That is so nice. Oh, how I love that. You see, when you fall in love with character. Isn't that what lasts? Even when the grey hairs and the wrinkles come, that is what lasts. That will take you through all the storms, is character. Love is a choice. It doesn't mean you choose to love someone that you're not even attracted to. Of course there must be an attraction. And of course there must be an analysis. Absolutely. But oh, how often is love chosen here? Yeah? And remember, it's the wild horse. Psalm 16 verse 7 that says, I will bless the Lord who hath given me counsel. My reins also instruct me in the night season. That's your frontal lobe. And the other one is it's Psalm 39 verse 1, where it says, I said, I will take heed to my ways, that I err not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle, while the wicked is before me. It's there. Your words affect your feeling, but your words also reveal your feelings, and you cannot let them all out. Let's go back to Psalm 39 verse 1. I said, I will take heed to my ways, that I err not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle. What's the bridle? That's where you give your heart to God, and He puts strength into that bridle. Notice the next verse. My heart was hot within me. While I mused, the fire burned. Then spake I with my tongue, Lord, make me to know mine end, the measure of my days, what it is, that I may know how frail I am. Oh, when does a person know how frail they are? When they say words they're sorry for. Isn't that true? He says in the second verse, I was dumb with silence. I held my peace. Even from good, my sorrow was stern. My heart was hot within me. Even feeling like that, there is no need to say it. Colossians 4 verse 6 states, let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that we may know how we ought to answer every man. It would be better that you went outside and run round the block 3 times than to lose it with your family. And how often do people lose it with their family? Michael was really tested recently when I ran over his computer in the car. Obviously it was an accident. I didn't realise the computer was there. I backed out and bang. At that point he rang me. We were in Sydney doing meetings. And as the car stopped, because I wanted to know what the bang was, and I saw the computer case with the handle. At that point he rang. He said, "How are you going?" I said, "All right." He said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I just ran over your computer." Silence. Do you know there's a wonderful power in silence? It would be better that, remember, I was silent. I said, "Well, I have to go because I'm backing out and I've got to be at the meetings in half an hour. I'm about to speak to 80 people." Okay, he went. I'm driving along. What do you think I'm challenged with now? You idiot. Huh? Isn't that what the feelings do? And you know what the Bible says who the accuser is? The accuser is the devil. Remember, he walks around like a roaring lion, seeing who he can devour. Wouldn't he love to devour me right now? So I can't speak to 80 people. Who am I going to listen to? Frontal lobe quickly says, "Settle down, Barbara. It was an accident. Settle down." Feelings come up. "You idiot." See the dialogue? Then I get a call. It's Michael. "It's all right." How I love that man. Do you think he had some challenges in that 10 minutes before he rang me? Absolutely. But frontal lobe saying, "You know your wife, she's ultra diligent in everything she does. You know it would have been an accident. Michael usually drives. He was called away, so I had to drive. I'm not used to locking the cars." A whole lot of things. She's about to speak to 80 people. So he rings up and he says, "It's all right." Whew. Only cost him $1,200 and he got a new computer out of it, which is better than the old one. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. You know, some of the worst dialogue that we go through is on ourselves. Am I right? Lady emailed me from America 2 weeks ago. She showed me photos of her little boy, this high, covered in eczema, shocking eczema. Then she gave his story. She had antibiotics when she was pregnant. Then he was vaccinated. He reacted badly on the vaccines. There was no milk that he could take. Second vaccination, he stopped breathing. High-pitched screaming when he did. Eczema came out. They gave him cortisone and antibiotics. Can you see what's happening here? Next vaccination, he started to fit. She said, "We got to the point where we stopped everything." And she said, "We are getting some improvement." She said, "I have great difficulty with what I have done to my child." So the first thing I said in the email, I said, "Don't ever do that again." I said, "You did the best by your child." Every parent vaccinates because they want the best for their child, yeah? I said, "If anyone's to blame, it is the pharmaceutical companies. Just have a little look at how much they make every year." And you know, medicine is the third killer in the world today. Did you know that? Medicine. Now, I'm not down on doctors. Some of my best friends are doctors. There are some excellent doctors. It's the pharmaceutical company. Be very cautious. I'm very cynical of anything that comes out of there. I do know that some drugs save lives, have saved lives, but the day-to-day person should be able to get away without it. I said, "Don't ever do that again." I said, "You did the best you knew by your child. Don't do that. Control those feelings that are going to want to beat you up." Does it help? No, it's a fruitless exercise. You use your reason, judgment and intellect on that one. It makes no sense at all. No. I said, don't you hold it. And I told her some few things she can do. I said, "You know what you got to do to this baby? You got to heal his gut. You got to start healing that gut." She wrote back and she said, thank you so much. Why was she thanking me? Your words affect your feelings and your words reveal your feelings, and they can't all come out. You may say, well, it's my right to speak my mind. It's your obligation not to. But I'm upset. We'll go for a run. I'm upset. Chop some wood. Have a cold shower. But do not, that'll cool you down, but do not speak until frontal lobe is in control. Do not speak. Do not speak. Let your speech be always with grace. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we might obtain mercy and grace to help in every time of need. He's able. He's able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless. Jude 24. The last one was Hebrews 4. He is able to keep you from falling and present you faultless. But you've got to do your part. You've got to come to him. You've got to give your body the right conditions. You've got to stop the caffeine, the sugars, the alcohols, the drug. You've got to start exercising. You've got to start giving your body the right conditions so your frontal lobe is clear. And this morning I defined what pulls that down. No wonder the devil laughs at when that goes down, because then we are unable to choose what we should. Your words affect your feelings and your words reveal your feelings. Be very cautious on them. Remember, practice makes perfect and practice makes permanent. Number 5 is the law of adaptation. And as I mentioned when I started the lecture, it's only the last 10 years that medicine has acknowledged we have a changeable brain. There's a book called The Brain That Changes Itself by Dr. Norman Doidge, full of stories of people who've made remarkable differences in their life through these changes. Now, because of the law of adaptation, our brain has the ability to grow and our brain has the ability to shrink. So I'm going to give you a wonderful growing scenario and then a terrible growing scenario. Actually, I might begin with the terrible one so we can finish on the wonderful. What's a terrible growing scenario? You've heard the story of the fish that got away. Every time the story is told, what happens to the fish? So if you've been through tragic experiences, stop relating them all the time. Because not only will they get bigger, and who would want them to get bigger, but remember what's growing? Little thorns. Little thorns grow between the dendrites, and those little thorns damage the tissues. What's the wonderful growing scenario? We have 1 trillion nerve cells in our brain, and one nerve cell has the ability to develop 70,000 dendrites. How do you develop a dendrite? And you can be developing new dendrites till the day you die. Learn the piano, learn to ski, learn a new piece on the piano, learn to tap dance, whatever, learn to pottery. My husband 5 years ago learned to fly a helicopter, Bell 47. It's a manual helicopter, and he said you got to do 5 different things at once. Right foot, left hand, and your right hand's doing 2 things at once. I think he grew a lot of dendrites. His teacher said, I'm warning you, you're in your 50s, it's going to take you a while. He said, I got 2 clients in their 50s, one's up to 80 hours, still hasn't mastered hovering. Michael said, mastering hovering is like trying to stay on a slippery rubber ball. He said, I got another client who's 60 hours, still hasn't mastered it. Michael mastered it in 20 hours. Same as the teenagers. The teacher was shocked. How many 50-year-olds does he meet who doesn't drink, who doesn't smoke, who doesn't drink coffee, who doesn't eat sugar, who's a vegetarian, who goes to bed early, who exercises every morning, who drinks his water? There is a formula for physical and mental health. In fact, there's a little book called Ministry of Healing, and on page 127, those laws are outlined, and at the last bit it says, these are the true remedies. And yet, when he was 20, he was having LSD, he was having marijuana, he was getting drunk. So he sustained some damage. But this morning I showed you brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's all right, I didn't remember this when I first read it. But brain-derived neurotrophic factor was discovered in 1998, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor is a protein that stimulates neurogenesis. That's new brain cells. How do you stimulate brain-derived neurotrophic factor? Early nights. Heard this before? Water. Exercise. Low carbohydrate diet, high in fibre. Generous proteins like your legumes, nuts and seeds. Healthy fats like your avocados, your nuts, your olive oils, your coconut oil. And this book here, Stop Alzheimer's Now, Dr. Bruce Fife shows, and he has many stories in there of people who've turned Alzheimer's and dementia around by low carbohydrate diet, high fibre, all your vegetables, fruit, healthy proteins, and supplement with coconut oil, even up to a tablespoon 3 times a day, because that coconut oil releases ketones, which are neurohealers. Isn't God good? Ezekiel 36:36, that the heathen that are left round about might know that I, the Lord God, build the ruined places and plant again that which was desolate. For I, the Lord God, hath spoken it. Michael says the best thing that ever happened to him was at the age of 21, he gave his heart to God. Through a study of Daniel 2, it made more sense than anything he'd ever read. He was a wild bikie. And he went a wild bikie because he grew up in the Catholic Church and no one could answer his questions, so he just went wild. By the grace of God, he survived his initiations into the bikie club. But before he became a member, God plucked him out as a brand out of a fire. God is so good. So what's a terrible shrinking scenario? If you don't use your brain cell, you will lose it. So I want you to spend the rest of the day choosing your musical instrument that you're going to learn if you don't play one. Triangles out. Can't afford much, mouth organ, recorder. I did start the recorder. Michael doesn't run out of the room when I pick it up anymore. If you don't use them, you will lose them. So we should be learning new things right up until the day we die. So if you don't use it, they shrink and they die. What's the wonderful shrinking scenario? When you forgive everyone who's ever hurt you in your life, ever misunderstood you, abused you, you turn painful past to dust, and the pathway to that memory actually shrinks. Isn't that good news? So it doesn't become part of your everyday life. And the glial cells are activated and they vacuum clean up all those thorns. All because we choose to forgive. The last law is the law of diversion. And the law of diversion states that when something's so firmly denied as to refuse any hope for it, the brain has the ability to divert to other pursuits. We do it on the children, don't we? I was with my little granddaughter Sophia, 9 months old, and she kept wanting to go to the wires, as they do, so it's divert, divert, divert. What's the old saying? When God closes a door, he opens a window. An Italian man said to me, no, we say when God closes one door, he opens two. Never in my wildest dreams, in the rainforest, where life was tough, did I ever dream I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And the day that I had to drive out with my 6 children, We only got out because he thought we were coming back. I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it's the best. And can't we often say that? I'm sure we can all testify that some of the hardest or the most difficult things we've had to do in our life have turned out to be the best. It takes a lot of horrible, stinking muck for that beautiful, pure white lily to be on top of the lake. Yeah? Have you seen where their roots are? In the muck. The more stinking the manure, the more beautiful the roses. Mm-hmm. Notice my opening paragraph. I'll give you the last sentence again. To transgress his law, whether it be physical, mental or moral, is to place oneself out of harmony with the universe, to invite discord, anarchy and ruin. Applying these mental laws will ensure mental and physical and spiritual health. You put those mental laws in conjunction with the moral law, in conjunction with the physical law, you got a foolproof program. I'm going to end with a paragraph from a little book called Christ Objects Lesson. It's 3 page 7. Transgression of physical law is transgression of the moral law. For God is as truly the author of the physical law as he is of the moral law. He has written his law on every muscle with his own finger. He's written with his own finger on every muscle that we've been entrusted, and every misuse of any part of our organism is a violation of that law. All should become intelligent as to the human frame. How many? All should become intelligent as to the human frame and how to keep it in the conditions necessary to do the work of the Lord. The relation that exists between the physical organism and the spiritual life is one of the most important branches of education, and I'd like to suggest in my own words, and one of the most neglected. Amen. The physical organism should be carefully preserved and developed. Got that? Who does the preservation and the development? Us. The physical organism should be carefully preserved and developed, that through humanity the divine nature might be revealed in all of its fullness. Oh, what a privilege is ours, that the divine nature may be revealed through us. Please bow your heads as we close. Father in heaven, thank you so much for such exciting principles. Thank you so much for not leaving us alone to wander around in darkness, wondering whether you love us, wondering whether our bodies and our minds will ever work again. No, no, no. You have said that you are the light of the world, and whoever follows you will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Oh, Father, we are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid, neither do men light a candle and hide it under a bushel, but they set it on a candlestick, and it giveth light to all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they, seeing your good works, will glorify your Father which is in heaven. Amen.